segment on DSC TV called Unpopular Opinion, where we debate common and present and past debatable sports talk shows and debatable questions with a group of panelists and hopefully special guests in the future. But to start it off, I'm your host, Mika Gatt, and going around the little panel we have here, on my left right here, I got the trusty as always, Mr. Kyle Pucci. And on my right, I got Mr. Ayush Yushman. All right, so, boys, let's start off with a really simple question. Let's start off talking about Cam Newton and the New England Patriots. So right now, they had a good game against Miami. They had an iffy one against Seattle. Really close game. Came to the last play, 1 yard line to be exact. But what do you guys think about Cam Newton? Is he the future of the Patriots, or he's just a temporary quarterback for them right now? Kyle, what do you think?
Well, there's definitely been an impact. I mean, I'm not ready to say that he's the future of the, I mean, we have 2 games. Like, if he comes out and sucks this weekend, I can't have that same energy that he's the whole future. Has he been great? Yeah, he has. But we have to forget he's on a 1-year deal. We can't put too much stock into 2 games. There's 14 weeks left. I mean, he's at least giving me hope that the Pats will be way better than what I thought. I expected 8-8, 9-7, but now I can go to expect maybe 11-5, 12-4, depending on how the defense plays, how he keeps playing if he gets injured.
Absolutely. What do you think, Yush?
I have to agree with Kyle. I'm not really worried about his performance. I'm just more worried about him getting injured over the next 14 weeks because he's been proven to not just stay healthy for 16 games. If he stays healthy, then I think we should sign him to a long-term contract, but our history with giving players top money is just not good. He let so many people walk.
What do you think about his chemistry with Edelman? How do you think he's playing with Edelman better than Brady was back when Brady was the quarterback?
I'd say better, but they definitely have good chemistry, and they're connecting on a lot. I mean, what else?
Well, for a new quarterback who hasn't even had preseason, we have to factor in that too. He's a new quarterback, new system, new receivers, and there's no preseason. Usually when quarterbacks get used to their new players, he didn't even have that. And how many did he go for last week? 150, 180, something like that. I mean, that's a good sign. Sure, Edelman's not going to give you 180 yards a week. He's just not that type of player. But, for this Patriots offense to run, it needs to run through Edelman basically like it always has. We need to have Newton getting him the ball.
That's true. But at the end of the day, like on the last play of the Seahawks game, every single human being on the Seahawks team, on the Patriots team, knew that it was going to be Cam Newton running the ball into the end zone because Cam Newton is not a quarterback that's going to hand off the ball to a James White or a Rex Burkhead. He's going to take the ball and he's going to try to jump over people into the end zone. Do you think that's going to get him injured or maybe even cost the Patriots their season?
Well, I think what no one is talking about on that play is that he took a full-on flip from one of those hits. Was just a full-on flip that could have gone seriously wrong. I mean, no one's talking about it, but I mean, I'm not gonna say I didn't like the play. Running with Newton was the right idea in that situation, but I thought they at least should have put a wide receiver, somebody on the outside. There was at least another option. Everybody knew that play was happening. I mean, first of all, they ran it 2 times before for a touchdown. If you run it a third time, oftentimes a team is going to stop you on the third time.
Of course.
It's just there has to be a second option there, and there wasn't.
What do you think, Yush?
Yeah, I'd rather we ran with Newton, but just a different formation because, I mean, it worked for like the past, as Kyle said, the past 2 times. But then on one of the times he threw it because it was a fake run, and he just lobbed it up to the fullback. So if we maybe ran it from a different formation, it probably would have worked, but I think running with Newton was definitely the right call.
I agree. But what do you guys think of the Patriots are now sitting 1-1 in the AFC? Sorry about that. And the Buffalo Bills who are the favorites. I know you guys don't like Buffalo, especially now. Who are the favorites to win the AFC East when the season started? But they're 2-0 right now. Yes, they played the Jets. They played the Dolphins. They had a close game against the Dolphins, not as much the Jets. But how do you think the Patriots match up with the Bills? Like when it comes, who's going to win that division and why?
I think it'll be us. I mean, Seattle's much better than Buffalo. I don't think there's any disputing that. And if our kicker made a field goal in the first half, we would have won the game easily because it would be a chip shot for the win at the end of the game.
Patriots also had a pick 6 on like the first play. That was Russell Wilson missing his receiver, so that just gave him a free 7 points.
Well, then you have to factor in how Pete Carroll also threw the ball 50 yards instead of taking the 1 yard on the third down at the end of the game that let the Pats back in the game at the first place. I mean, they ran for 150 on the ground, I think for 4 yards a carry, and he flat out opened the door for the Patriots to win the game. Like,
Of course, yeah.
I mean,
But do you guys think the Bills have what it takes to go? Do you think the Patriots could go to Buffalo and beat the Bills? And they have a pretty good defense. But they do have a pretty solid defense up there in Buffalo. And Josh Allen does have arm strength. He just doesn't have the accuracy just yet.
Yeah, I think we should be able to easily because now we actually have a running game with Cam. And
I mean, you don't have
also
running
didn't
backs. You have
James White
Cam
against
Newton.
Seattle. And James White not being there was a big loss.
Well,
'cause that
how did
helps.
James White play Week 1 against Miami?
James White just helps us in so many more. Like, it's not just stats. Like, he's a good pass protector and blitzes.
Agree.
And he's he just makes good plays.
he can also catch the ball out of the backfield. Michelle can do one and one only thing: run the ball. He touched the ball 10 times last week. Got 17 yards. Useless.
Yeah.
Useless.
Well,
Yeah, we should have picked Nick Chubb with that pick instead of Sonny Michelle.
well, of course, Nick Chubb turned out to be a pretty well. I mean,
Second
at the same
chances.
time, you guys picked a quarterback in the year 2000 who turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, just a little last thing to talk about football. What do you guys think about Brady right now? Do you think him and Gronk in Tampa Bay? You think below expectations, above expectations, ruining expectations? What do you guys think about the Buccaneers or Tampa Bay Brady, as they call it?
It's actually Tampa Brady.
Tampa Brady,
And
all
second of all, I had them going to the Super Bowl. I still have them going to the Super Bowl, but Gronk just looks done. I mean, I don't know how much you guys have been paying attention, but he can't get out of his. He can't. I mean, of course he could run block, but he also weighs a lot less than he used to. Like, how could you run block better when you're not the same size as you used to be? And he can't separate from press coverage. He has two catches for I think 6 yards in 2 games. And now you have Bruce Arians talking about how he's here to play tight end. But this was the same guy who said at the end of training camp, Gronk looks like the player he was 5 years ago. We obviously know what that looked like. And I mean, he wasn't very good when he retired. I mean, sure, he had that one last Super Bowl, but he couldn't get out of his breaks there. And then you take a year off, and you're not, you know, he's not hitting the weights as much. He was an analyst at one point.
Yeah, for Fox.
And then you come back, you can't really expect him to be the same guy that he was. But
Absolutely. But right now, I heard Bruce Arians came out and said that this week he said on an interview he had that he was going to target Gronk 10 to 15 times a game. But do you think that's going to happen?
oh God, no.
No, you don't think so? I think does that offense go through Mike Evans and Chris Godwin?
Brady looks good. I mean,
Looks okay. He looks like a pretty good 43-year-old.
first half against Carolina, he looked really good. Then the second half, he looked like a 41-year-old quarterback.
43.
43.
43. Yeah. Don't
Yeah.
forget, he's 43. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, their defense looked good in the first half against Carolina, but then McCaffrey got injured, so we don't really know if that game would have turned out differently if McCaffrey stayed healthy.
That's true. That's true.
And I mean, Tampa Bay looks good, but I don't think they're going to the Super Bowl. They're so inconsistent at this point.
I agree. I agree.
I mean, I feel even better about my pick now that the Saints don't look that good. I know they didn't have Michael Thomas, but
That offense is 3 players, though. Breeze, Kamara, and Thomas. Sanders is not.
He's not,
Sanders
yeah.
and Breeze don't have
I
chemistry.
think he had 1 catch during the Raiders game, and he was their number 1 receiver. He had 1 catch, and that same secondary, the week before, had Robbie Anderson. I think he had 2 touchdowns and like 250 yards.
Yep, you're right.
Something around there. They let him go for that, and Emmanuel Sanders is a much better, I think, talented player than Robbie Anderson. Couldn't do anything.
He also had a horrible block on a 3rd down Monday night. It cost them the first down. They ultimately ended up punting, and that could have.
Talk about the fact Drew Brees can't really throw a ball more than 5 yards when Michael Thomas is on the field.
Okay, well, that's an over-exaggeration.
A little bit, but he's not a deep ball thrower. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not a Josh Allen or Lamar. He's like an old version quarterback who's not going to launch it all the way across the field. He's not going to do that.
Well, yeah, when he's 40 years old or whatever, of course he isn't going to have the same arm strength as. I mean, that's just. But
When you have Michael Thomas, though, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
he doesn't have to be Pat Mahomes or Wilson. You're talking about 2 all-time great deep throwers.
Yeah, of course. Well, do you guys have anything to add about the NFL games this week, past weeks? Anything to add until we move on to the NBA? Nothing to add? All right, so let's talk about the bubble experience for the Boston Celtics. So it was a little bit, some ups, some downs. We lost Gordon Hayward in the series against Philadelphia, but we swept them, so whew. Then the second series was a little bit tougher against Toronto. Went to 7 games. There was the OG Anunoby Game 3 buzzer beater. None of us were happy about that point. But we all know how mad we were. We were all crying on the ground. All of the city of Boston was crying on the ground. But they still won in 7. That was a great game. But now they are in deep trouble, down 3-1 to Miami. After last game, they just didn't have – most games they have a lead, and they just can't maintain it. But last game, they just didn't have a lead, and they just pretty much just stopped trying towards the end of the game. But what do you guys think about the Celtics? Is it end of the road for them? Is it time to what are they going to do? Is it, do they still have a shot tonight, for example, against Miami, or are they done?
Well, I think, yeah, tonight I think they are done, but – you also have to have this approach. Who do you blame now? Who do you blame? 2 years ago, it was Kyrie being injured. Yeah. People thought it was Kyrie being injured, even though you were up 2-0 Eastern Conference Finals with Game 7 at home. Last year, it was all Kyrie's fault. It was how he traumatized all the young players. Now you're down 3-1 in the Eastern Conference Finals. Giannis wasn't here. Milwaukee went down. Kevin Durant isn't even in Brooklyn yet. Neither is Kyrie.
Well, they are in Brooklyn. They're just not playing.
Well, they're not playing. Exactly. And, where do you have to look at it and say, where do you go from here? I mean, I think we can all agree. I think they had an easy path to the finals. It's definitely a failure that they're probably, I mean, who am I to say they're not going to win? I'm just going off assuming it's 3-1. They're probably not going to win this series. And I think they're going to have to look at the roster in the offseason and see, is this the team they want to go forward with? Because you still have the egos clashing. You are wrong if you say that it was all fixed after the whole Game 2 explosion in the locker room. Absolutely. That's not how this stuff works. If you remember last year, Celtics lost by, I think, 30 against Houston. I went to that game at home. Next two days, they're going to Golden State, and apparently it's, we had a great plane ride. We have everything figured out. Yeah, what happened in the playoffs? So, they're going to have to – they have some self-reflections to do because you can't blame – they can't blame anybody but themselves in this. They failed.
Right. Ayush, what do you think?
I think they just started relying on their talent too much. I mean, Jason Tatum, Game 4 – drops 28 in the second half, but as a scoreless first half. He looked so much better in the first half. In the first half, he wasn't attacking. He wasn't taking good shots. He was taking off-balance threes. In the second half, he starts playing like himself. I think that's part of coaching, just not having your players ready for the game, first of all, because when you don't come out and start with the same intensity that you end the game with, you're going to lose.
That's true.
We don't have the talent, or we don't have the players to just come back from 10-point leads.
I'm going to add on what you said about Jason Tatum. I don't know if I'm the only one noticing this, but if he isn't looking like himself offensively, his defense also goes. He's proven he can be a good defender when he wants to, but I think where he needs to start, of course, I shouldn't be talking, but where he needs to learn is that when you're not playing well offensively and you give up on defense, what do you bring to your team? Absolutely. Besides bringing everybody down? This team doesn't have a leader, and that's really showing in this series because, I love Kemba Walker, but I don't believe he's a natural closer. He's never proven he's a natural closer. And with, down 3-1, I think the Celtics have led in about 65%
pretty much
of this. It just and now they're down 3-1 despite leading over 60% of the minutes in the series. Miami is just killing you in the final crucial minutes of the game. If they have Butler, they have some other guys they can go to.
Here at 37, for example, on Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly. If these guys don't know who to go to at the end of a game, it's just proving. It's time after time after time.
Absolutely. Well,
I don't think it's whether or matter if Kemba can close. He can definitely close. It's just when Miami uses him so well defensively to their advantage because they keep switching. Every time we switch on the picks, they end up with Butler on Kemba, or Kemba's has a disadvantage because he's not that great of a defensive player.
Yeah, I think he's the worst defensive player on the Celtics. Well, outside of Tice, maybe.
So do you think that's a coaching factor?
I think it's actually, because Stevens has to figure out how to make sure that Kemba stays on Tyler Hero, or not even Tyler, just Duncan Robinson. And also, we should go under the screens when they're coming off a three. Like, just trailing behind them and letting them take a three. We're going to foul them, or they're going to have a good look 60% of the time. If we go under, we're forcing them to take a deeper three, or they're just not going to take the three at all and have to keep going revolving the offense and take a tough shot.
Well, absolutely. But doesn't it hurt when you look on paper? Doesn't it look like the Celtics could just match up better with the Heat, with the Raptors? Because when you look on paper, you have matchups like Marcus Smart and Tyler Hero. And if Marcus Smart, the way he played against Fred VanVleet, I'm pretty sure he was guarding, right? Mm-hmm. He locked him down. And the way Jaylen Brown played against Siakam had an awful series. They, on paper, they are a better team, and they show it in the first halves, and they just blow it because like they hold Butler for going. He usually ends the games at like 9 for 18, but those 9 points he mainly gets towards the end of the game. How frustrating is it that we should be winning, but we're not?
It's not really frustrating. Like, Smart's played Dragic for the past 2 games, and Hero went off. For the other 2 games, he wasn't really on Dragic, and Dragic had really good games. Like, Smart's not really, like, defensively, he's not the problem. Like, Jaylen Brown, he's a good defensive player, but if you're just falling around Duncan Robinson, just running around, his defense is just, like, he's just not really that good of a defender anymore. And Jimmy Butler, they usually get Kemba on. And Tatum's not done awful defensively, and then Bam has just killed us in the pick and roll, too. Like, it's just bad coaching. Like, we have to figure out a way to stop their offense, and we just keep running the same thing, expecting them to help us, but we're not really doing anything.
Well, I think Jaylen Brown also believes he's the smartest person in the room, and that, you know, Miami looks like they're playing for each other. You know, you see it every game. A different person is the one who goes. Of course, Bam has had his way in the series, but
he's on Tice, so
you know, you saw Butler in game 4. He was in attack mode early in the game. Like they know who to go to in the key spots. They realize Tyler Hero is the hot hand, so they're gonna say, okay, rookie, like we're gonna go to you in this game. It's gonna be your time. The Celtics, even when they win, it's, where are my shots? Well, how about my shots? Well, I need mine too. These guys don't know what team they are. You know, like, and with their talent, if they could just put this together, we know what they look like when they're playing amazing. They look like the best team in the league, but you can't put that together in parts. Of course, you're not going to blow someone out every game, but what these guys need to learn is that they need to distribute the ball. Common key. I mean, we've talked about this over and over again. When they go up by these big double-digit leads, 15, almost 20, they all start trying to play the hero ball instead of the ball movement that completely disappeared in the second half of Game 3. It almost lost. They scored 60 points in the paint in Game 3. All of a sudden, in Game 4, they went away from that.
Whenever we're attacking the paint, we're doing well. But when we just start making, we haven't been shooting the three well this series. We keep missing the threes. When we keep taking them repeatedly, we lose. Like in Game 4, we came back because Tatum had like 2 1s in a row and kept going to the basket, which got other people open threes and hit himself some open threes. Like Tatum got going and then to the basket, and that opened up our offense. If we just take bad threes over and over again, that's how we keep losing.
Absolutely.
And I think it's too late for them to just all of a sudden, figure it right out.
It might not be too late, but if they don't do something tonight, then it's over.
My question is, what do you guys think? Who wins tonight and what's the score? Quick prediction. Just throw it out there.
I just have the Miami Heat. I mean, the Celtics have given me no confidence or any reason to believe that I should think they should win going into this game tonight. Miami has just proved they just look like the better team. I think the Celtics have more talent, but the Heat look like they're all business right now. Like, in the Celtics, they don't look like that.
I think Celtics win tonight, but Heat win in Game 6 and go to the finals.
No, I agree with that. I think that's a good point because I think the Heat are going to win the series because I only think the only team that can come back 3-1, we'll talk about them in a little bit, but I think the Celtics, I don't like the 3-1. The momentum's really on the Heat right now, and I think they're going to the finals. The bubble experience. Well, all right. So before we go to our next topic, I want to give a little disclaimer for the viewers out there. So I want Mr. Ayush over here to talk about your top 5 all-time basketball players. Can you just list them from 1 to 5? Go ahead.
I'm not going to list them in order.
Okay. Well, who's number 1?
Michael Jordan.
Who's number 2?
I would say Kobe.
Kobe. And then the rest you can, in any order you would like.
Larry Bird, LeBron, and Kareem.
Okay, but you do not think that LeBron James is the second greatest basketball player of all time?
Like, if he wins his 4th, probably, yes.
Okay. So the question is, right now, in the West, LeBron and the Lakers won Game 3 last night, and they're up 3-1 against the Nuggets, who, by the way, came back twice, 3-1. But we can talk about that series a little bit. But the question is, if LeBron James wins ring number 4, this is the 3rd franchise he would hypothetically win it for, Miami, Cleveland, and now LA. Is he in the GOAT, more so in the GOAT conversation than he is now? I mean, comparing to Michael Jordan. What do you guys think?
Well, I don't believe it puts him over the top. However, it makes him closer. Like, I'm not just going to say that, Michael Jordan is, obviously, he's 6-0 in the finals with 6 MVPs. LeBron is 3-6. I predict he's going to be 4-6 when this is all said and done. But I think LeBron needs one more, he's going to win a 4th one, I believe. I think he needs
Before he retires, or just in this? How many
this year?
How many rings will he retire with?
I don't know. I just have to see what the league looks like next year, because there could be more teams. But he's going to have a 4th one this year. Let's just say, hypothetical, he has a 4th ring this year. He's going to have to. I don't believe MVPs or stats is really going to get him anything closer. I think he's going to have to prove it with how he plays in these finals. So if he just gets carried by Anthony Davis, teams, they're going to remember that. People are going to remember that. They're going to say, do you remember when LeBron won the NBA championship with the Lakers? They're also going to say, oh, but Anthony Davis was the real MVP of that team.
I mean, you can make the case now. Anthony Davis is probably averaging 30 in this Nugget series.
Yeah, he also hit the game winner.
He hit the game winner.
Game 2. Not LeBron.
LeBron had what, 2 points in that second half of that game?
I think so.
I believe he had 2 points in the 4th quarter.
Yeah,
the 4th quarter, yeah.
Awful. Anthony Davis was there to help him, and then, I mean, this is probably one of his easiest paths to the finals. Maybe 2018, because his toughest team was a team led by rookie Jason Tatum.
Oh. Well, let me counter that for a second. When you look Michael Jordan versus LeBron James has never lost the first-round matchup, whereas Michael Jordan has multiple times over and over.
How many Hall of Famers has LeBron played in the first round? Because Michael Jordan's played 11 in his 3 losses.
That's true, but but when he had him, he either had Horace Grant, he had Scottie Pippen, he had Dennis Rodman.
No.
Well, who did he have on his? Well, not the first year. The first year when he was drafted by.
No, his first 3 years there was no Horace Grant, no Scottie Pippen. He averaged
obviously
40.
that, yeah.
I'm pretty sure he averaged 37 or 38 in those 3 series combined.
Yeah, but that's true. But even if you're, what about LeBron James in 2007? He made the finals on a Cavs team. Or who's the second best player? Andrew Sanjayho? I don't know who's on that team. So they made the finals with that matchup. So you got to give him a little bit of credit too.
You can't really compare facing Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, and those guys to whoever was in the East at that time.
That's fair.
The East in the 1980s is so much better than whatever it was today.
It's also a different era.
Yeah,
exactly. It's a different type of basketball.
Yeah, and LeBron is not. I still even find it hard to compare Michael Jordan to LeBron because it's just 2 completely different eras. I mean, in the 90s, you had guys whacking each other on the head, and they'd be common fouls. Sometimes not even common fouls. You hit someone in the head in today's NBA, you have to do all the replays. Is it a flagrant? Is it a flagrant 2? We have to go through all the replay nonsense. And I don't believe LeBron would be the same player if he played in the 90s. I believe he'd be worse, and I believe he'd have a much harder time scoring.
I agree, yeah.
MJ's easily the best scorer of all time. I don't think there's any debating that.
Overall scorer, absolutely, yeah.
He averaged, 38 points a game when he was, 34 or something?
Yeah. No, in Chicago, he had a great career. He was scoring. He was the leader on the team.
I mean,
that's clear.
He led the league in steals 4 times. He has, I think, 10 scoring titles. He only played 13 years in Chicago.
True. But you guys are also, I know that the 90s, they had a lot of good teams as well. You got the Jazz powerhouse, you got all that. But I know the East hasn't been necessarily as strong, especially when LeBron played in Miami. They did have the big 3 over here in Boston. teams weren't necessarily as bad. And you still can't like discredit all the teams that were out in the West. The Spurs of the 2010s, the Warriors, you got the Lakers. LeBron still had some tough competition. It's not like he was playing against like fourth graders pretty much.
But like,
well,
Pierce, Garnett, and Allen were in their late to mid 30s.
In 2008, he's been playing since 2003. So 2008.
He never beat them until they were in their like 35.
Because he didn't have a supporting cast in 2008.
Well, he never beat them.
That's fair.
Right, and then Parker, Ginobili, and Duncan are also, what were they, like 33, 34 when he beat them?
Still won a ring in 2014.
Yeah, but I mean, that team best player was like a second or third year Kawhi.
Well, that was 2013, and that was when Ray Allen, in my opinion, saved LeBron's legacy by hitting the most clutch shot of all time. And also, since you're bringing up when he took his team to the finals, I'm going to bring up last year when the Lakers were in position to make the playoffs. LeBron comes back from his groin injury. Okay, I get it. They were the 4 seed at 20-14. That's such an amazing 4 seed. But they're still in position to make. They're only one game out of the playoffs at this point. They're still the 9 seed. They can still get in. And he missed the playoffs. He doesn't have that impact.
I mean, same thing happened with MJ in his rookie year, right? He got in the last dance. He injured his ankle. They were behind 4 games, and he plays them when they went out and make this playoffs.
Well, I feel like to debate this technically, as of today, as of end of September, I don't know the exact date, LeBron only has 3 rings, and he's up 3-1 to the Nuggets. So this is more of a fair argument to have once the series is over. So what does that just mean? That means you, the viewer, have to tune back in because this is now going to be a weekly show. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys have any questions and any ideas for topics we should debate, send an email to this link right up here that we will have posted up here. Send the link right here for any topics you guys want to see us have, any possible special guests you want us to see if we could invite. And please come back here next week. Check out the show, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'm, as always, your host, Mika Gatt. Thank you so much. We'll see you back here next week.